All right, we're closer to getting some answers in this episode, and we should be considering we're at the halfway point essentially. There's 9 episodes in this season. This is episode 4. So we start off with a flashback where we meet the man from I think was it Paraguay or Uruguay? I forget. Name is Manasus, who is basically uh, he's a storage office manager who has been refusing help from the others, and they've been bringing him food to the gate, and he's refusing to accept it, but he's literally starving to death inside, and he has blockaded himself off. And we see this flashback sequence where he answers the phone, which we saw from the other end when Carol called him in the previous episode. And this poor guy, I mean, he's literally hadn't had anything to eat for days. There's a point where he like opens up a sardine can that's empty and he like pulls the lid out and like licks the lid just to try to find the flavor of something. And then somebody arrives in a Volkswagen Beetle and like leaves food at the gate and he goes out with a crowbar and like flips the thing over and won't eat it. And then decides that he's going to go rummage through all the storage units to try to find something to eat. Ends up finding dog food, and proceeds to eat the canned dog food. At the same time, and I'm not sure how this is going to come back to um, be a part of the show later on, but he's scanning um, radio signals trying to find contact with anybody, and it's looked like he has like 3 minutes per. But then she calls, and he literally writes down "esterca," which can be translated a variety of different ways. Does it mean is she stubborn? Is she stupid? Is she rebellious? But I think the intent here is that is she like me? Is she not one of them? Is she has she resisted? So he writes down her name and is wondering who she is, and because that last phone call when she calls him, she's like chinga tu madre cabrón, curses him out, and it makes him realize that she might not be one of the others if she's talking that way to him, because they've all been super nice to him. Now, on the Carol end of things is essentially her starting to write down everything she knows about the others. Um, and this is the investigation process essentially, uh, where things that come across, one of the things she determines is that they can't lie. She ends up investigating or interrogating, excuse me, one of the workers who's on site, like cleaning up her home. And in the process of interrogating him, she finds out, she asks about her previous partner, what her book manager thought about her books, gets some answers that she was not ready for, and realizes that they actually can't lie. Now, they will definitely, if they are faced with an uncomfortable question, they will attempt to avoid answering, but ultimately they cannot lie, which leads her to having a confrontation with Zosha. She goes back to the hospital, Zosha's awake, and in the process, she asks Zosha, when you guys first talked about this joining, you said you didn't understand it. Do you still not understand it? And she replies that, well, we have a greater understanding of how things are now. And Carol pops the question, well, have you figured out if this is a process that you can undo? And Zosha is like, well, I really think we should talk about something else. She tries very hard to ignore the question. She's like, I really can't answer that. And Carol's like, yeah, but you can't lie. And the fact that you're not giving me an answer is giving me the answer. So I just need you to tell me how we can undo this process. We then get to learn a little bit more about her and the fact that she went to conversion therapy when she was younger. Her mom sent her there, which, you know, put her in no contact with her mother. And she basically accuses Josha and the others of doing the same thing that the conversion therapy camp tried to do to her, which is change her from who she is. And yeah, it's a great conversation. Um, she then decides to go into the hospital pharmacy and get some truth serum. Takes it home, excuse me, injects herself, records herself, realizes that she's sexually attracted to Zosha, which is interesting, and then goes back to the hospital, manages to get Zosha outside in a wheelchair, injects her with the truth serum, the sodium, whatever it's called, and then proceeds to grill her about the um, the how do we reverse this? And like Zosha just does not want to answer, even under the truth serum. She's battling not being able to answer. She starts to cry, and Carol's like, "You're sad that can't answer me, aren't you? And she's like, yes. She's like, just tell me. You've already told me that it, you've already told me, you've already acknowledged that the process can be undone. So what do we need to do to undo it? And as this happens, a bunch of the hive show up and they're like, please, Carol, stop. Please, Carol, no. Carol keeps pushing, and this sends Zosha into a cardiac arrest, and that's basically where the episode ends. Is Zosha flatlining on the asphalt or on the concrete outside of the hospital, and Carol sort of looking on. Um, and I think that it's very interesting that we've discovered a bunch of new things about these hive minds, that they can't lie. They can attempt to avoid answering the question, but the avoidance of answering is in and of itself an answer. But they can't quite come to grips with it, and it basically triggers this thing in their brain. And she's trying to get around that with drugs, and I'm not sure if that's going to work or not long term. But it's going to be very interesting to see where we go from there, to see what the long-term solution is for recovering from this, and how our guy in Paraguay is going to fit into things. So I look forward to next week. Great episode as always. Really having fun with this show. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Drop them down in the comments below. Stick around for more. Happy viewing, everybody.